A billionaire mobster kidnapped me from my abusive husband for my own safety. I thought fighting back against my drunk husband would only make the beatings worse. But then Dante Castellano sat at my table. He didn't just ask about my black eye. He ordered a full background check on me. By sunset, his massive bodyguards were dragging my husband out of our apartment, and Dante looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "You're staying in my penthouse now. You don't have a choice."
Listen up, guys. Let us step into the dark together. You and I, because we are starting at absolute rock bottom. Picture our girl, Mia, pressing her bruised face against freezing bathroom tiles. She is tasting straight blood, knuckles completely white, from gripping the sink like it is the only thing keeping her alive. The cheap lights above are buzzing, shining right on a cracked mirror. She does not even want to open her eyes, bro. She is dreading the wreckage, but she forces them open, and the reflection is a total stranger. Her lip is completely busted and purple. A nasty, burning bruise is painted across her cheekbone. She holds her aching ribs, taking a shaky breath, whispering about how stupid she feels. Honestly, the hardest lessons always start when we look in the mirror and finally see the truth. "So stupid," she mutters to her broken reflection. Right outside that flimsy door, she can literally hear Marcus stomping around their tiny place. Clink goes the bottle on the table. Screech goes the chair on the floor. Every single sound makes her flinch so hard you can feel it. Her muscles lock up, bracing for this absolute trash bag of a guy to come swinging again. Desperate for a grip on reality, she rips open the faucet. Freezing water blasts over her shaking hands, dragging her back from a massive panic attack. She splashes her swollen face and hisses as the cold bites into her busted lip. It is crazy how fear can trap you, but hitting absolute zero is usually the exact moment you start learning how to fight back and survive. She watches the pink, bloody water wash down the drain, disappearing exactly like her friends and self-respect did over the last 2 years. The wildest thing about toxic love is that the sweetest beginnings always blind you to the darkest endings. Marcus was not always this monster. When they first crossed paths, the dude was pure charm. He promised her a massive upgrade from working double shifts at some fancy Italian joint. He flexed with crazy dinners he could not afford, playing the rock she needed after growing up alone in foster care. Then came the very first time he hit her. He cried like a baby afterward, begging and swearing it was a one-time mistake. The lesson here: never let an apology blind you to the actual truth. The second time he laid hands on her, Marcus blamed the stress of getting fired. By round 3, the apologies vanished, replaced by ice-cold silence. Back in the bathroom, Mia taps her skin with a ragged towel, terrified to press on the fresh damage. Her hands are on full autopilot. She pops open the rusty cabinet, reaching right past his junk to grab her secret stash. Heavy foundation, maximum coverage concealer, thick powder. These are her actual weapons, the gear she uses to bury the nightmare. Soon, she will paint on that armor. She will iron her shirt, tie her hair back, and walk into her job, acting flawlessly fine. We all put on brave faces sometimes, but pretending everything is okay while you are falling apart inside is the heaviest burden anyone can carry. She already knows the exact script for her shift. She will fake a massive smile for the rich snobs, pour expensive wine, and laugh at their terrible jokes. She plays the role perfectly, completely ignoring how she has basically become a ghost in her own life. Let us be real for a second, you and I. When your back is against the wall, survival is all about the mask you wear. Mia clicks off the light and sneaks out. Marcus is fully passed out on their wrecked couch, gripping a warm beer. He is dead to the world as she sneaks through the TV glare. Her only superpower right now is being totally invisible. She slides into their freezing bed, curling into a tiny ball. Sleep will not come, not with her face on fire, and his nasty snoring echoing. Remember, simply surviving a dark night is a massive victory in itself. 5 in the morning hits, and a brutal alarm rips Mia right out of her nightmare. She smashes the clock, desperate to kill the noise before the monster on the couch wakes up. Getting out of that bed takes absolute superhuman willpower. Her whole body is aching with dread. Her face feels tight, skin burning over bruises that turned into crazy shades of purple and black. The place is silent except for Marcus grunting among empty bottles. Moving like a literal ghost, Mia runs her routine. Scalding shower, layers of thick concealer, crisp uniform. She looks completely normal to the outside world now. Covering up our pain might easily fool the crowd, but we always carry the true heavy weight of it by ourselves. She jumps on the early bus at 6:15, sliding straight to the back row, where the shadows hide whatever her makeup missed. Outside, the city is just starting to wake up. Yellow streetlights glowing against a gloomy morning. Mia drops her forehead against the freezing window, letting the streets blur out. She is heading to a famous, high-end Italian spot right in the financial district. We are talking major boss vibes here, a sanctuary where cutthroat businessmen drop massive deals over pasta, and shady politicians whisper secrets in the back booths. For 3 straight years, this place has been her lifeline. Finding a single spot where you feel genuinely safe and respected can anchor your whole life, and for Mia, this chaotic restaurant is exactly that safe haven. The boss of this joint is Giuseppe, a massive Italian dude in his 60s who took a huge gamble on a desperate girl years ago. He expects absolute perfection from his crew, but he hands out serious cash. Best part? He completely ignores the ugly bruises Mia sometimes fails to hide. She sneaks through the alley door before 7, locking her crisp apron tight. The crazy good smell of roasted garlic, basil, and dough hits her like a warm hug. This wild kitchen is her actual family. But suddenly, Giuseppe is shouting her name from the back office. Mia instantly freezes. She swallows pure panic, checking her painted face in the shiny metal cooler before stepping toward the big boss. Sometimes, the sudden, scary moments are exactly the push we need to face a life-changing plot twist. Giuseppe is leaning on his massive wooden desk, looking seriously stressed out. Standing right there with him is a total stranger. Let us check out this new player, shall we? He is wearing a charcoal suit that easily costs triple her rent. Giuseppe says his name is Marco, supposedly here for a private security gig. That lie is so obvious you could cut it with a knife. But Mia just plays along. In a city run by mob bosses, this spot is untouchable neutral ground. Marco sticks his hand out and Mia grabs it. His handshake is insane, hard and fast. His dark, laser-focused eyes scan right over her face, staring with a terrifying heat that makes her want to bolt. The eyes never lie. And paying close attention to a stranger's gaze might just save your life when trouble walks into the room. This dude is handsome, but it is the kind of look that screams massive danger. He has this chiseled jaw, dark hair, and freezing cold eyes that are totally scanning the room for weak spots. He tells her it is nice to meet her, sounding smoother than top-shelf bourbon. Mia mumbles a quick hello and practically runs out to the dining room, her heart beating like crazy against her bruised ribs. Something about Marco's look made her skin crawl. It felt like he literally x-rayed right through her thick makeup and saw the broken person underneath. She spends the next hour's stress, prepping the restaurant, laying out crystal glasses. It is a solid lesson that no matter how thick you build your walls, the right person will always know exactly how to see straight through your disguise. The doors do not open until 11, but everything must look pristine. Mia is scrubbing wine glasses when she feels an intense stare burning her neck. She spins around. Marco is chilling against the bar, watching her work. His jacket is off, sleeves rolled up, revealing thick muscle and pale scars. Truly, our scars are like history books, written on the skin, showing the hard truths we try to hide. He compliments her fast hands. Mia mutters about having years of practice, grabbing another glass to avoid looking at him. He mentions the boss called her the absolute MVP of the floor. Mia tries to shrug it, but Marco steps right up, totally invading her bubble. Let me tell you, when danger steps directly into your space, you are forced to figure out how strong you really are. Marco drifts closer, and Mia catches his aura. He smells like expensive cologne, but underneath it, pure violence. I am talking old leather, cold smoke, and gunpowder. Listen close, because this is the plot twist we have been waiting for. Marco casually mentions he does not buy the boss being a nice guy. Mia goes silent, glass until her fingers cramp, and then, boom, he calls out the massive bruise buried under her makeup. Mia literally forgets how to breathe. She almost drops the fragile glass. She tries to stutter a denial, but he shuts her down. His voice drops into a dark, intense whisper. He lists every single red flag he spotted. The limp, the busted eye, the flinch. We think we are brilliant at hiding our deep pain, but a sharp observer will always spot the painful truth you are trying to bury. Mia is burning up, her face flushed red as pure shame and rage twist her stomach into a knot. She snaps at Marco, telling him her life is absolutely 0% his business. But Marco just steps closer. The heat coming off this absolute unit of a man is insane, and he whispers that it might just become his business. Panic makes people bold, so Mia demands to know if he is threatening her. That sharp tone makes a dangerous spark flash in his dark eyes. Dude legitimately respects the attitude. He swears he is no threat. Right then, Giuseppe bursts from the kitchen, clapping his giant hands, barking at Marco to check the cams and yelling at Mia to prep the table. The heavy tension vanishes instantly. Sometimes, a sudden, chaotic distraction is just the universe trying to voice save us from our own reckless choices. Marco locks eyes with Mia for one heartbeat, and bro, it is heavy. It is that silent nod between two people who have been dragged through the absolute mud. Then he walks off, leaving her shaking and realizing her emotional walls are totally crumbling. To dodge a meltdown, Mia speed runs prepping the private room for the Castellano family. We are talking filthy money tied to the absolute darkest parts of the city. She has served them before, always playing the invisible background character. Before noon, the real heavy hitters roll up. Politicians, businessmen, even the district attorney. It is a massive reality check, guys. You and I both know the world is not fair, and this scene is a harsh reminder that the exact same people breaking the rules out on the streets are usually the ones writing them. These corrupt suits settle into their private bunker, dripping with that untouchable rich guy arrogance, and then the main boss walks in. Dante Castellano. Now, Mia has poured this dude's wine before, but she never actually looked at him. You do not just stare at the Grim Reaper when he is holding the city by its throat, right? But today, she literally cannot look away. The guy is maybe 32, gliding into the room like a hungry tiger, flanked by two massive goons. His black suit is custom tailored to perfection. He is pure intimidation. It is wild how the human brain works in these tense moments. Sometimes our survival instinct screams at us to run away as fast as possible, but other times we just stand completely paralyzed, mesmerized by the exact thing that could destroy us. Dante's hair has that effortless flex that costs $1,000, but his face demands total surrender. The dude is gorgeous, but in a freezing, ruthless way. His dead eyes scan the room like a sniper picking targets, and his aura is so heavy it feels like a humid summer day. Affirm, the second he drops in, all the loud chatter flatlines. Giuseppe starts sweating buckets, shaking the Don's hand with crazy respect he gives to nobody else. Mia presses herself against the wall, begging the universe to make her an invisible background character again. But nope, those sniper eyes lock right onto her beat-up, bruised face. It is crazy how life works, guys. The harder you try to shrink down and hide out in the dark, the faster the harshest spotlight will hunt you down and expose everything. Was that actual recognition in Dante's eyes, or just some twisted curiosity? Before Mia can process it, he vanishes into the private dining room. Her hands are straight up shaking again. Dante is not just some wealthy ghost. The entire block knows his name and the literal blood soaked into his family's empire. Anyone with half a brain stays miles away. Suddenly, Giuseppe sneaks up, looking pale as a sheet. He whispers that she is serving the private room tonight, with Marco on security duty. Mia tries to dodge it, but Giuseppe is sweating bullets. The Castellanos asked for her specifically. Bro, you and I both know that horrible, stomach-dropping feeling. It is that exact second you hear the cage door finally click shut, and you realize running away is no longer an option on the table. You can see actual heartbreak in Giuseppe's eyes. He tells her he would say no to them if he could, but nobody denies a Castellano. Mia gets it. She squares up her tired shoulders, takes one last look at her bruised face in the mirror, and pushes those heavy doors open. 12 absolute mobsters are chilling at the table, with Dante sitting at the head like a literal king. Marco is parked by the wall, watching her every move. The room smells like expensive cigars, heavy cologne, and pure, unfiltered danger. Every survival instinct she has is screaming at her to dip, but she somehow keeps her voice totally chill and starts serving drinks. Listen up, folks. Real bravery is not about being fearless. It is about feeling your knees totally give out, but forcing yourself to step forward anyway. She is moving around the table, topping off waters and totally ignoring the sketchy, predatory ways these dudes are sizing her up. She is used to it. In her messed up world, women are basically treated like trash. But the second steps up to Dante, the whole vibe glitches. He looks up at her, and that bored rich guy stare vanishes. He zeroes in on her bruised face like he just found a missing puzzle piece. Watch closely, guys. His polite mask literally freezes into pure ice. His voice cuts right through the loud chatter like a sharp blade, demanding to know who wrecked her face. Immediately, all 12 mobsters shut up. It just proves that sometimes the absolute most terrifying thing you can experience in the middle of a raging hurricane is sudden, dead silence. Mia instantly flinches, totally expecting a backhand. But nah, Dante catches her chin, and his grip is shockingly soft. He tilts her bruised face into the light and asks again, super quiet but insanely deadly, "Who did this?" She panics, begging him to drop it, dropping the classic lie that she just fell. It feels like ash in her mouth. Then, this mafia boss gently brushes his thumb over her cheekbone, and that tiny bit of kindness makes her eyes well up with hot tears. He calls her Mia, warning her never to lie to him. Of course, he knows her name. She begs him to let it go, because she desperately needs this gig. It is a tough pill to swallow, but desperation, will literally have you defending the exact same toxic situations that are completely destroying your life. Something absolutely unhinged flashes in the Don's eyes. He lets go of her face and snaps right to his security squad. He orders his boys to dig up exactly where she lives, who she lives with, and wants a full dossier by sunset. Mia is low-key choking on panic, trying to tell him to stop, but Dante just stares right into her soul. For a split second, you can actually see the real human hiding behind his mafia boss armor. He flat out tells her she is under his protection now, zero debate allowed, and casually sits back down. A freezing chill hits Mia's bones because she knows her entire life just got hijacked. It really makes you think. We spend our whole lives begging the universe for a savior, but we totally forget that sometimes pure salvation looks exactly like a deal with the devil. The rest of her shift is just an absolute fever dream. Mia keeps her head down, pouring expensive wine and faking a customer service smile, while her whole reality does backflips. She can literally feel Dante's eyes tracking her every move like a laser. When the mobsters finally pack up and bounce, Mia's legs just give out. She hides by the walk-in freezer, fighting off a panic attack. Giuseppe finds her there, looking super defeated. He tells her to clock out early, keeps her on full pay, and gently squeezes her shoulder. He mutters that whatever happens next is totally out of his control now. At the time, Mia is just confused. You and I have probably been there too. We almost never clock the true weight of a quiet warning until the hurricane has already blown the roof straight off our house. Mia switches into her ratty old hoodie in the bathroom, hands shaking out of control. When she steps into the back alley, the sunset is bruised with crazy purple colors. And guess what? A pitch-black Mercedes is just chilling in the shadows. Marco is standing by the open door like an absolute brick wall. He tells her to get in. She tries to flex, saying she is catching the bus. But Marco is not having it. He just shakes his head. Boss's orders. He straight up says she can get in the car, or he will physically toss her in the back. Knowing she is totally outmatched, she gives up and hops in. The entire drive to her sketchy neighborhood is dead quiet, just the heavy hum of the engine. When someone with massive power rips away all your choices, that empty silence easily becomes the absolute loudest sound on earth. When this luxury tank rolls up to her busted apartment building, Marco finally turns around. He warns her to bolt her doors tonight, letting her know Castellano does not do fake threats. If the Don says she is protected, she is untouchable. Mia sprints inside, her heart hammering against her bruised ribs. Like, what does protection even mean from a mafia kingpin to a broke waitress? Her tiny apartment is pitch black. Marcus is not home yet, probably out blowing his paycheck at some garbage bar. She should feel lucky he is gone, but instead, pure dread locks her in place. She bolts the door, shuts the blinds, and just sits in the dark, waiting. Listen, life teaches you this the hard way. Sitting around in pure agony, waiting for the bad thing to happen, is honestly way worse than actually taking the punch to the jaw. Okay guys, picture this setup. Mia is literally just sitting in the dark, bracing herself for an absolute disaster. 3 hours later, her garbage husband Marcus kicks the door down, reeking of cheap booze and pure rage. She doesn't even make a peep while this absolute coward throws her into the drywall. No fighting back, because she knows fighting a trash bag like him only makes it worse. So she's curled up on that nasty floor, tasting iron, and what's she thinking about? The local mafia boss, Dante. She's dreaming of this dark-eyed kingpin swooping in to save her. It just goes to show you, when you're pushed to absolute rock bottom, Your brain will grab onto literally any lifeline it can find, even if it happens to belong to the devil himself. Mia wakes up the next day, sounding absolutely wrecked, just pathetic little whimpers echoing in the room. The morning light is hitting off these gnarly fresh bruises, and she's stuck on the floor feeling like she's breathing actual shattered glass. Her ribs are practically screaming at her to stay still, and guess what? Marcus is already out of there. The dude's a massive coward who always bails before he has to look at the absolute wreckage he caused. The whole place just smells like stale beer and pathetic regret. We gotta talk about this, guys. People think that just because a toxic person leaves the room, things are peaceful. But honestly, that heavy, bleeding silence they leave behind is really just a totally different flavor of violence. Let's look at the facts here. Mia is staring in her bathroom mirror, looking like a straight-up horror movie victim. Out of nowhere, her phone starts buzzing. It's a text from Big Bad Marco, the right-hand man of the boss. He's like, "The car is pulling up at 6:30. Don't keep me waiting." She wants to text back and tell Dante to back off, but her fingers are completely frozen. Men with that kind of mob power literally don't process the word no. She jumps into a scalding shower, which hits every single bruise like a tiny knife. She stays in until the water goes freezing cold, trying to scrub off the nightmare. The crazy lesson here is that you can slap a pound of concealer over physical damage, but your soul never forgets the hits. So Mia goes full makeup artist on her face. Color corrector, heavy powder, the works, just trying to look somewhat normal again. At 6:30 on the dot, a pitch-black Mercedes is idling outside. Marco doesn't even hold the door for her. She drags herself into the back seat, trying not to let her fractured ribs snap. The car smells like straight-up mafia money, leather and expensive cologne, and her stomach is doing backflips. Marco looks in the mirror and casually drops the bomb. He says the big boss wants a meeting before her shift. Her heart practically stops right then and there. When she asks why, Marco gives her the absolute cold shoulder. It reminds you that the scariest trips in life are the ones where someone else controls the wheel. Marco tries to play it cool, saying the boss doesn't bite. Yeah, right. That joke totally flops and leaves Mia even more stressed out. They're cruising through the city in dead silence, definitely not heading to her waitressing job. Instead, Marco rolls into this ultra-rich district, where the buildings look like pure billionaire ego. This is old money territory, the kind of absolute power you don't mess with. The Mercedes slides into this underground VIP garage right under a massive black glass tower. He parks in a spot that just says Castellano. Marco turns around, points her to the elevator, and tells her to hit the 5th floor without keeping the boss waiting. Listen up, folks. When ultimate power calls, it doesn't ask for permission, it gives directions. Mia's Hydron whispers, "What if I refuse to go up?" Marco actually looks a tiny bit sorry for her, but he drops a heavy reality check. He says he'll physically carry her if he has to. She's going up no matter what. She steps into an insanely fancy elevator covered in polished mirrors. It's basically a torture chamber, forcing her to look at her own busted-up face from every possible angle. She looks so insanely small and breakable in there. The doors open to this ridiculous marble lobby with priceless paintings. The receptionist doesn't even blink at her. It is a super harsh reality check, but honestly guys, it doesn't matter if a room is coated in 24-karat gold and millions of dollars of art. A cage is always going to be a cage. The receptionist calls out Mia's name with zero emotion. They totally knew she was coming. Mia nods and the lady points her straight to the boss's office. Mia's walking across this massive floor, feeling like her legs are made of heavy cement. She gets to these giant, solid wood doors that probably cost more than my entire house. She raises her shaky little hand to knock. But before she even touches the wood, Dante's deep voice calls out from inside. He tells her to come in. This guy has cameras everywhere, bro. She walks into an office that absolutely screams boss energy. Dark wood, endless skyline views, the whole city right at his feet. He's just standing there on the phone. The big takeaway here? True authority never has to raise its voice. Now, usually Dante has an army of muscle around him, but today he's completely solo. He actually looks a bit younger, but somehow way more lethal. He holds up one finger to Mia, blasting someone on the phone in rapid-fire icy Italian. You don't even need to speak the language to know he's about to ruin somebody's life. He puts the phone down, and then his eyes lock onto Mia. Boom. The cool guy act drops completely. He looks so furious he might actually explode. He crosses the room in 3 huge steps, grabs her face, and pulls her right into the light. He growls, "Out." He did this. Bro, it wasn't even a question. It's a crazy reminder that the people who protect us often carry a darkness just as scary as the absolute worst villains we're running from. Mia tries to play dumb, stammering that she doesn't know what he's talking about. Dante shuts that down instantly. He tells her not to lie in this super soft, terrifyingly heavy mafia voice. He says he reads people for a living, and she's awful at hiding things. He rubs his thumb over her fresh bruises, and he's being so surprisingly gentle that she almost starts sobbing right there. Up close, you can see Dante's jaw clenching with pure rage. He demands the guy's name. She finally cracks and whispers, "Marcus, my husband." Dante instantly clocks her empty hands and points out she has no wedding ring. She admits the absolute loser sold it for drinking cash. Listen to this brutal truth, folks. The worst damage we take usually comes from those who swore to protect us. Dante turns around and just stares blindly out of his massive billionaire windows. His fists are clenched so tight, his knuckles are glowing white. When he finally speaks, his voice has zero emotion. He asks how long this has been happening. Mia chokes out that they've been married for 2 brutal years. She's so ashamed she can't even say the word abuse, so Dante says it for her. He points out she's been terrorized in her own home. Mia gets hit with this wave of misplaced guilt and actually tries to defend the guy. Dante spins around, completely losing his mind, and yells, "Not his fault. The boss energy is suffocating." He tells her point blank, "This ends right now. Guys, remember this. Taking the blame for someone's toxic behavior will only end up destroying your own life." Mia's freaking out, telling him he can't just step into her marriage. Dante practically roars back that he runs this city and does whatever he wants. He gets right in her personal space, claiming her under his mafia protection, saying anyone who touches her is a dead man. Mia's totally confused. She asks why a massive kingpin cares about a random waitress. Dante gets dead quiet. "You know the craziest secrets live in that silence, right?" He looks at her face and drops a massive law bomb. 25 years ago, his own mom was a waitress, until his dad saved her from an abusive partner. Here's the deep truth. Sometimes people go to extreme lengths to save a stranger purely because they're desperately trying to heal the broken parts of their own tragic history. Guys, look at this. Dante, this absolute unit of a mafia boss, just casually reaches up and grazes his knuckles over the nasty bruise on Mia's cheek. He drops this heavy backstory, talking about how Dante drops his voice into this straight-up lethal register. He tells Mia that when her garbage husband walks in expecting a punching bag, he is going to find the mafia Don waiting in the dark instead. The pure terror crashing into a twisted spark of hope inside her chest is insane. She actually begs him not to kill the guy. She has no idea why she is pleading for the monster who shattered her bones, but the guilt makes her sick. Dante studies her shaking frame and promises not to end him, but swears the guy will learn the exact cost of breaking what belongs to the boss. Look, you and I both know this profound tragedy. We so often try to shield our own tormentors, simply because stepping out into the vast unknown feels way more terrifying than enduring a pain we already know. Mia fires back, telling him she does not belong to him. Dante just leans in, his warm breath grazing her ear. He whispers that the exact moment he saw those bruises and decided they offended him, she became his absolute power move. Guys, he heads for the doors, telling her Marco will drive her while he handles the rest. She calls out to Mr. Castellano, but he softly tells her to call him Dante. He wants her to remember one thing. She did not ask for his protection, he chose to give it. Her husband brought this on himself. It is a heavy lesson we all have to accept. Our salvation does not always arrive wearing bright, white angel wings. Sometimes it walks right through the door wearing a tailored suit, carrying the dark weight of the criminal underworld. And just like that, the Don is gone. Mia stands alone in that office, her pulse hammering. The terrifying realization settles in that her life is permanently derailed. Her restaurant shift vanishes in a sickening blur of panic. She moves like a ghost, pouring wine, her hands trembling violently. She keeps watching the door, terrified her husband will burst through. The old bartender leans in quietly and drops a truth bomb. The Castellano family protects what they claim, but they also completely own what they protect. Marco drives her home as the sun bleeds across the city skyline. This whole situation teaches us a grim reality about survival. True freedom is rarely ever free. Sometimes we are just forced to trade one brutal cage for a much more beautiful one. Heavy silence fills the car, that suffocating quiet before a massive storm hits. Mia sits there completely paralyzed, staring at her building. Marco kills the engine but keeps the doors locked. He mutters that the boss will be here soon and they will handle it. She asks how they plan to handle it, even though she already knows the dark answer. Marco catches her terrified gaze in the mirror and says, however needs handling. He orders her to wait at the neon-lit diner across the street, straight up forbidding her from going home. Out in the cold, she gets a bitter coffee she will never drink, watching her window like a ticking time bomb. You see, sometimes the hardest walk we ever take in this life is the one away from a familiar pain, straight into the terrifying unknown. 20 minutes bleed by before a sleek black SUV creeps to the curb. Dante steps out into the streetlights, followed by two absolute mountains of scarred muscle. These guys are not just men, they are pure violence breathing in the night air. From her diner booth, Mia watches them vanish into her building. 3 floors up, her living room lights flicker to life. Her bruised ribs ache as she realizes the sheer force of the monster she just unleashed on her husband. Her coffee turns to ice water, but she grips that cheap mug like a literal lifeline. Through the dusty glass, she can see brutal shadows dancing across her curtains. It is a tragic truth we all face eventually. Once we open the door to the dark, we can never fully control the shadows that slip inside. Those shadows in the window start moving with sharp, violent jerks, turning her stomach into a knot of dread. What are they doing to Marcus up there? Her survival instinct screams that her abusive husband deserves the boss's wrath. But the ghost of the guy he used to be, before the whiskey and the rage, makes her sick with guilt. A waitress walks up and offers a refill. Mia softly says no. The woman hesitates, wanting to offer comfort, until a deadly glare from the counter chases her away. Mia blinks and realizes Marco is perched right at the bar, watching her every move like a hawk. You and I both know this painful reality. True healing requires letting go, but the rusted chains of a former love are always the most agonizing ones to break. Listen to this absolute madness. Marco lifts his mug like it is a normal Tuesday, and right then the lights in Mia's apartment completely black out. Her heart practically stops, and she tries to bolt, but Marco slams his massive hand onto her shaking shoulder, pinning her down. "Stay," he growls. Mia is literally shaking, asking if the guy is even still breathing. Marco looks her dead in the eye. "The boss keeps his promises," he says. "He is breathing, but he will not be walking for a very long time." It is totally normal to want karma to strike back at the people who hurt us. But here is a real-life lesson. Getting brutal revenge does not always bring instant peace. Sometimes it just trades your old panic for a brand new kind of aching pain. The cafe door squeaks open, and Dante glides into the room. At first glance, he looks like the same untouchable ghost from this morning. Crisp suit, perfect hair, looking like a movie star. But Mia instantly feels this terrifying, dark energy radiating off him. He slides into the booth, and guys, the details are absolutely wild. His knuckles are completely busted open, raw and crusted with fresh blood. There is a splatter of red on his black collar. His eyes look like black holes. He stares at her and says it is done. When she begs to know what he actually did to Marcus, Dante just gives her a cold stare and says he did what needed doing. The lesson here is chilling but true. Some men do not just survive the dark times. They embrace the shadows and wear them like a custom-tailored suit. Dante reaches across the table and grabs her shaking hand. He starts rubbing soft circles into her palm, which is honestly terrifying, considering he just destroyed a guy with those exact same hands. He promises her that Marcus will never touch her again. When she reminds him that he swore he would not kill the guy, Dante just hits her with a villain smile. He did not end Marcus, but he completely broke him. He made sure Marcus knew exactly what would happen if he ever breathed in Mia's direction again. Cowards only understand brute force. It is too much for Mia, and she snatches her hand back, shaking. Take this lesson to heart today. True power is not about destroying your enemies. It is about knowing exactly how to make them live every single day in absolute paralyzing fear. She asks what happens now, and Dante just stands up. He casually buttons his expensive jacket like they are heading out for dinner instead of dealing with the wreckage of her life. He tells her to pack a bag because she is done living in that apartment. When she cries that she literally has nowhere else to go, Dante drops the ultimate boss mandate. "You are staying with me," he says. It is not an ask, it is a straight-up order. Her old building was a total trap anyway, with bad locks and scared neighbors. He will not leave her vulnerable while Marcus plots his revenge. Stick with me here, because you and I need to remember this truth. The moment you finally manage to outrun one terrible storm, you almost always find yourself standing right in the dead center of a massive hurricane. Mia snaps back, asking if she is basically his prisoner now. Dante gets this wild, dangerous flash in his eyes. He leans in close, totally caging her in by grabbing both sides of her chair. He tells her she is his responsibility now, and that is way different. The guy smells like a crazy mix of fresh blood, designer cologne, and pure danger. He breaks down her choices in a terrifyingly smooth voice. She can walk away right now. She can go back to her apartment and wait for Marcus to turn her into a punching bag again, hiding her bruises with makeup. That is the crazy thing about life, guys. Freedom is a heavy burden. Sometimes your only real option is not choosing between a perfect fairy tale and total ruin. Sometimes you just have to decide which monster gets to hold the keys. Look at this insane power move, guys. Dante is just staring her down, dropping the absolute coldest line ever, telling her that her life flipped upside down the second he decided to claim her. Mia is totally freaking out. Her brain is screaming that trading a basic toxic loser for a literal mafia boss is just upgrading the wallpaper in her prison cell. But her exhausted soul thinks maybe this cage comes with softer bars. She finally caves, her voice completely shaking, and asks how long this deal lasts. Dante just hits her with that mysterious smirk, saying, "As long as it takes." You and I both know how that feels, right? Sometimes you hit rock bottom, and jumping blindly into the wild unknown actually feels safer than going back to the nightmare you already survived. Marco completely shatters the tension, rattling the car keys like a boss. Vincent already packed up Mia's entire life into one pathetic little bag. Dante is just standing there, waiting for her to lock in. Mia closes her eyes, flashing back to that grimy apartment and the 2 years of pure hell she barely survived. She pictures Marcus crying on the floor, knowing his fake tears always turn right back into swinging fists. Feeling her bruised ribs, she finally whispers that she will go. Boom. Dante immediately sweeps her away to his untouchable penthouse in the sky. She takes a private elevator straight into a lobby dripping in insane mafia money. It is crazy how leaving a toxic past sounds so easy, but willingly stepping into a totally alien world takes a reckless courage most people never find. Dante's turf is straight up intimidating, guys. We are talking massive windows, showing off the city like he literally owns it. The furniture is that crazy expensive minimalist stuff, but honestly, the place feels super hollow. It is less like a home and more like a flex museum. Dante points her to the guest room while ripping off his ruined suit jacket. As he rolls up his sleeves, the bright lights catch his arms, and wow, plot twist, that he is covered in jagged scars leading right down to the split, bloody knuckles he just used to absolutely wreck her garbage husband. It really makes you think about life. Have you ever noticed how the absolute most beautiful, spotless spaces in this world are almost always built by hands that have survived the absolute ugliest sides of human nature? Mia is frozen on the marble floor, totally lost in the sauce. She has no idea if she should thank this kingpin for destroying her husband or beg to know the price of his protection. Dante reads her panic like a book, strolls to his bar, and pours 2 massive glasses of whiskey. He hands her one and flat out says he knows she is terrified of what he wants. She nods, shaking. He claims he wants nothing. Mia is not buying that, clapping back that guys like him do not do free favors. Dante's lethal eyes light up with amusement as he asks what kind of guy she thinks he is. She whispers, "Dangerous." Constant suspicion is a heavy armor, honestly. It protects our fragile hearts from getting wrecked, but it also locks us away from experiencing totally unexpected grace. Mia whispers that dangerous men do not save broken waitresses out of sheer kindness. Dante steps right into her space. He hits her with a reality check, telling her she is absolutely not broken. Damaged? Yeah. Hurt? For sure, but broken things cannot fight back, and she has been fighting every single day. Mia shakes her head, claiming she is barely existing. Dante goes soft, telling her that sometimes just existing is the biggest flex of all. He heads out to handle some dark mob business, leaving his top enforcer Marco at her door as a human shield. Let me drop a real-life lesson here. There is an incredible strength in simply refusing to shatter, even when this brutal world keeps swinging its absolute heaviest hammer right at your tired soul. Let us unpack this insane moment together. Dante sounds absolutely ruthless. He tells her he is sending a brutal message to anyone who even thinks about looking at her funny. If they touch her, they deal with the boss himself. That level of possessive energy should be a giant red flag, right? But plot twist, Mia actually feels a crazy warm sense of safety she has not felt in years. When she asks why he cares so much, Dante goes dead silent. The guy looks like he is drowning in old trauma. He drops a bomb, saying he was only 5 when he had to watch his own mom try to cover up her black eyes with cheap makeup. It hits so hard, guys. Sometimes, the deepest and ugliest scars we carry around end up becoming the absolute best shields we use to protect the people who need us the most. Dante opens up about hearing his mom crying through the walls every night. He was just a powerless kid begging the universe to end his nightmare. He sets his drink down and reveals his ultimate origin story. He made a blood vow that if he ever got power, he would permanently delete men who use fists to feel strong, with zero mercy. That is a wild confession from a dude who runs the underworld. When Mia asks about his dad, Dante's face turns to stone. He drops insane lore. His dad was the previous mafia don who found his mom working as a waitress, exactly like Mia. Here is a real-life lesson for you. Often, our absolute fiercest, most unstoppable purpose is born directly from the exact moments we felt the most pathetic and completely helpless. His mom was running for her life from a monster, just trying to keep baby Dante safe. The old mafia boss fell crazy in love, married her, and made Dante his heir. Then, he delivered the ultimate vendetta to the toxic ex. When Mia asks what happened to him, Dante does not blink. He goes full Terminator, stating they pulled his body from a river 3 months later. Officially, a drowning. Unofficially, the dude went for a swim wrapped in heavy chains with snapped legs. You would think Mia would be horrified, but plot twist? She feels a twisted thrill of satisfaction. She realizes Dante is saving her to fix his own haunted past. Sometimes, the absolute only way to heal your own deepest trauma is by saving another person from suffering the exact same brutal fate. Mia thinks she is just a stand-in for his mom, but Dante shuts that down fast. He steps close and gently cups her cheek. Seeing this lethal mob boss show such insane softness is wild. He tells her she reminds him of everyone who felt powerless, and since he is the Don, he is flipping the script. His thumb grazes her bruise, drawing a gasp of pain and pure chemistry. Dante's eyes get super dark. He whispers in this low, gravelly voice, telling her to sleep while he handles tomorrow's garbage. Boom, he leaves, dropping her alone in the penthouse with her heart racing. Here is the real takeaway, guys. True strength is not always trying to solo the boss fight. Sometimes it is having the absolute guts to let somebody else carry your heaviest burdens. Stick with me, because this is where the plot totally flips. Yesterday, Mia was a broken girl, suffocating in a toxic cycle. Tonight, she is chilling in a penthouse, guarded by the most lethal mafia don in the city. The crazy part? She feels safer than she has in years. She locks herself in the massive guest room, and for the first time forever, feels a spark of actual hope. But there is zero chance she is sleeping. The room is ridiculously huge, decked out in aesthetic grays that scream old money, making her feel completely out of place. The bed is a literal cloud. It just goes to show how insanely fast life can pivot. 1 second, you are drowning in the dark, and the next, a terrifying stranger literally hands you the master key to escape your own locked cage. For hours, Mia zones out, staring at the aesthetic ceiling. Around 3 in the morning, the elevator doors slide open. She hears Dante's deep, boss-level voice, trading rapid-fire whispers with his enforcer Marco, before absolute silence falls. Exhaustion finally knocks her out, and she wakes to brisk sunlight blasting through the glass. The smell of expensive coffee fills the air. For one glorious second, she totally forgets the drama. Then boom, reality hits like a freight train. She remembers her toxic husband, the brawl, and Dante's terrifying vow to protect her. Her phone suddenly buzzes, shattering the peace. It is wild how much we crave the morning light, completely forgetting that waking up means having to face the harsh reality we desperately tried to sleep through. A text pops up from her boss. He is giving her the week off, fully paid, because Dante already pulled the mafia strings. The Don literally took over her life without asking. Mia knows she should be mad about the red flags, but a massive wave of relief crashes over her instead. She can finally stop pretending she is okay. She jumps into the marble shower, letting the hot water soothe her bruised ribs. When she gets out, plot twist, her stuff is already perfectly unpacked. Her clothes, her makeup, even her favorite book. It is wild how fast his crew cleared out her old apartment. She throws on a baggy sweater to hide her bruises. Handing over control to a dangerous stranger is totally terrifying. But honestly, sometimes it is the absolute only way you can finally drop your shield and just breathe. Let's set the scene, guys. Mia finally steps out of her room, the brutal bruises on her face fading to yellow. Her makeup isn't a desperate cover-up anymore. Today, it is literal battle armor. She walks into the massive kitchen, and boom, there is Dante. The boss is just chilling by the marble counter, rocking dark pants and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves. Sipping espresso. Bro actually looks like a normal, approachable guy. But that illusion completely shatters the just millisecond his terrifying eyes lock onto hers. He offers her coffee with this smooth, low murmur. Here is the life lesson for today. The most dangerous predators never look like monsters in the morning light. We always mistake their quiet moments for softness, completely forgetting the lethal hellfire burning right underneath. You and I know exactly what is happening here. Mia is pouring coffee just to keep her trembling hands busy. She grips that mug and tells Dante he didn't have to do any of this. She fiercely insists she is not his burden to carry. But Dante, he steps around that kitchen island moving like a literal apex predator. He drops the absolute hardest line, telling her she became his responsibility the absolute second he decided she was. When she snaps back that she is not some problem to be solved, he looks right through her. He says she is just someone who needed saving but forgot how to ask. Look, here is a massive truth check for you. Asking for help is never a sign of defeat. Sometimes, reaching out your hand is the single bravest thing a broken spirit can do. Suddenly, the elevator chimes. The steel doors slide open, and Marco steps out with this sharp, elegant woman clutching a heavy briefcase. Dante gives a cool nod and introduces her to Mia as Rebecca Chen. Guys, this woman is straight up one of the most ruthless attorneys in the entire state. The lawyer shakes Mia's hand, offering genuine sympathy. Mia is totally spinning, asking the room why on earth she needs legal counsel. Dante does not even blink. With zero hesitation, he casually states that she is filing for divorce, like he is just talking about the weather. It turns out Miss Chen an absolute shark when it comes to domestic abuse cases. This is wild. But hey, life lesson time. The biggest turning points in your story rarely give you a warning. They just kick down your door and demand that you finally choose freedom. Dante lays out the ultimate master plan. This attorney is going to handle every single brutal detail, the endless paperwork, the strict restraining orders, the absolute legal warfare. All Mia has to do is drop the truth. The gravity of this makes Mia's head spin, and she stammers that he cannot just force the end of her marriage. But Dante steps in dangerously close, dropping his voice into this dark, terrifying register. He literally dares her to look him in the eye and say she wants to stay chained to a monster. The lie completely dies in Mia's throat, because Dante is totally right. Here is a tough lesson to swallow. For people who have been abused, true peace just feels like a fake fairy tale. They have been brutally trained to believe that fighting back only ever brings more devastating pain. Stick with me here, because this is where the plot thickens. Mia desperately grasps at her last excuse, whispering that she absolutely cannot afford this top-tier legal team. Dante shuts that down, instantly revealing the massive bill is already paid. He treats this high-powered lawyer like just another piece of his protection detail. Miss Chen promises Mia that she has destroyed guys like Marcus hundreds of times. But then Mia freezes, asking how they even have documented proof. Bro. Miss Chen pulls out an insane arsenal they built overnight. Covert photos from the cafe, buried medical records from her urgent care visits. They have everything. Here is a massive life lesson. Real protectors do not just drop empty promises. They quietly build an impenetrable fortress around you before you even realize you need it. The lawyer drops another bomb, bringing up testimonies they already grabbed from Mia's co-workers who saw her hidden bruises. They are sitting on a completely bulletproof case. They just need her green light to pull the trigger. Mia stares at Dante in total shock. This dangerous mob boss is actively burning her toxic marriage to the ground. She demands to know why he is going this hard for her. Dante simply says it is because she refuses to save herself. So many good people are brainwashed into thinking that suffering in silence is some honorable duty, and he is here to shatter that lie. When Mia softly asks what he even gets out of this, a flash of raw pain hits his face. Listen, guys, the lesson is deep. Sometimes, saving someone else's soul is the only way to silence the dark ghosts haunting our own. Can we just appreciate the massive character development happening right now? Mia just sits there, fully processing Dante's heavy words. For the very first time, the iron-willed boss showed a crack in his armor, asking for her trust whenever she was ready to give it. This vendetta was not just about his own dark past. This was about proving Mia was actually worth fighting for. She finally turns to Miss Chen and asks what she needs to do. Fast forward 3 hours, and Mia is sitting all alone on Dante's insane penthouse balcony, staring down at the glittering city lights. The vibe is heavy, but so incredibly peaceful. And here is the golden takeaway from this scene. We always talk about fighting our own battles, but honestly, sometimes allowing yourself to be saved is the absolute bravest thing you can do. Miss Chen walked out of that penthouse holding enough dark secrets to completely bury Marcus forever. The restraining order drops tonight, and divorce papers hit his face tomorrow. The nightmare is finally over. But instead of feeling relieved, Mia feels completely untethered. It is like someone just sliced the ropes, holding her down, leaving her drifting. Suddenly, Dante steps out onto the balcony, holding 2 glasses of insanely expensive dark wine. He hands her one without saying a single word and chills in the chair next to her. They sit there in total silence, watching the sun drop behind the massive city skyline. Check out this life lesson, guys. True freedom often feels exactly like you are plummeting to the ground, right up until the exact second you finally learn how to fly. Dante breaks the silence, asking if she is having second thoughts. Mia sips that vintage red wine and whispers she honestly does not know. Think about the crazy plot twist here. 2 years ago, she thought Marcus was her ultimate savior. Now, she is letting this terrifying mafia boss make massive choices for her. When she calls him out for making her decisions, Dante fires back with zero hesitation. He tells her he is just giving her the options she never knew she had. He straight up tells her she can walk out that door right now, and he will not stop her, but he will keep her safe. What an absolute boss move. And here is your life lesson for the video. True power is never about forcing someone to stay. It is about giving them the absolute freedom to choose their own path. Dante turns his head, his intense dark eyes locking onto hers, and drops a massive truth bomb. He says he is doing this because of her mother, but mostly because of her. When Mia desperately asks what she even is to him, the ruthless Don admits he does not know yet, but he fully intends to find out. Guys, the tension here is completely off the charts. This is incredibly dangerous territory. She just escaped a brutal marriage, and he is a man wielding insane underworld power. Every single logical instinct is screaming that this dynamic is a total recipe for disaster. But let us be real, logic never kept anyone warm at night. Just as Mia whispers name, his phone violently buzzes on the table, and his face instantly turns to cold stone. Honestly, life lesson right here. Destiny absolutely hates perfect timing. Dante mutters that he needs to handle business, asking if she will be all right alone. When she asks what is wrong, the Don reveals that her ex-husband just made the biggest mistake of his miserable life. Marcus actually went down to Romano's looking for her. Dante's voice drops into this terrifying, controlled rage, stating he already warned Marco as what would happen. Now, that absolute clown is going to learn the hard way. Mia panics and follows him inside, literally begging Dante not to kill the guy. Dante stops right at the elevator, looks back, and coldly promises he will not drop him, only because she keeps asking. This scene is wild, guys. Here is the final lesson. It is a deeply tragic irony how we constantly try to protect the very same toxic monsters who broke us in the first place. Stop defending your villains. Listen up. Let us look at this massive drama together. Dante locks his dark eyes onto hers, warning Mia that his restraint has hard limits. If this guy keeps threatening her, those limits are gone. Suddenly, the elevator chimes and Marco steps out, looking like a grim reaper. He announces a wild situation. Marcus Cole just rolled up to the restaurant with 3 goons, threatening to smash the place if Mia does not show up. Dante clenches jaws so hard it looks like solid stone. He demands to know how much muscle they have on site. Marco coolly replies 2 men are there with 4 more speeding over. Dante breathes a highly satisfied response. Life is tough, but remember this. A personal boundary is only as strong as the consequence you enforce when someone crosses it. Dante steps into the elevator, radiating absolute boss energy. He orders Mia to lock the door and not open it for a single soul. Unless it is Marco. Mia can only nod, her throat way too tight to even force out a word. The steel doors close, leaving her totally alone in the silent foyer. Her heart races like a trapped bird. She is drowning in pure guilt, fully believing Marcus is about to wreck Giuseppe and the restaurant, all because she dared to accept a helping hand. She tragically convinces herself she is broken, and broken people just end up hurting anyone who tries to fix them. Defeated, She locks herself in the guest room as the city lights turn the skyline into a freezing wasteland. It is a harsh reality to face, but guilt is absolutely the heaviest anchor a human soul can ever drag. Somewhere in that neon-soaked night, Dante is handling Marcus. Literal violence is going down in Mia's name, and the craziest part? She does not feel a single drop of pity for her ex. Suddenly, her phone lights up the dark room with a text from an unknown number. It is Marcus, threatening to hunt her down. Her hands shake violently as she takes a screenshot and fires it straight to Marco. Within seconds, her phone rings. Marco sounds coiled like a steel spring, asking where she got the message. He orders her to ghost the number entirely. He tells her the boss is handling it while they slap Marcus with a restraining order, something the lawyers are going to absolutely love. We have all been there, but fear is such a cruel manipulator, always trying to convince your mind that the bad times will never, ever end. Mia nervously asks if Dante is okay. Marco hits her with the ultimate mob enforcer line, saying the boss is always okay. He tells Mia she did the right thing, because toxic guys like Marcus simply do not stop until a bigger dog makes them stop. He hangs up, leaving Mia alone in the shadows, gripping her phone like a lifeline. She knows the bridges behind her are completely burned to ash. She has officially crossed into Dante's extremely dangerous world. It is terrifying, yet a tiny part of her is totally thrilled by it. Dante finally rolls back in, right after midnight. She had been dozing on the fancy velvet couch, too stressed to sleep in the bedroom, when the elevator chime wakes her up. Growth is scary, but stepping right into the absolute unknown is often the only real way to escape the ghosts of your past. Mia bolts upright, pure adrenaline flooding her chest. But it is just Dante. He looks completely wrecked in a way she has never seen before. His tailored shirt is violently yanked loose, and there are stark, undeniable drops of blood staining his crisp white collar. He loosens his tie, walking straight to the bar, and casually notes that she is still awake. Mia confesses she was worried, the honest words spilling out before her brain can filter them. Dante stops dead, the harsh lines of his face softening up. He asks if she was worried about him. She wraps her arms around herself and admits she was worried about all of it. Dante pours a massive glass of whiskey and downs the fire in one brutal gulp before walking toward her. Take notes, folks. Vulnerability is a heavy drink, best poured in the dead of night. Dante smoothly drops the ultimate plot twist. Marcus and his idiot squad are currently enjoying a nice trip to the emergency room. We are talking broken noses and cracked ribs. Nothing permanent, but totally painful enough to send a massive message. Mia gasps, terrified about Giuseppe's place, but Dante swears the restaurant is spotless. His men dragged the garbage out back and handled the beatdown in a dark alley. Dante takes a chill sip of his drink and adds that Marcus also violated his restraining order. Thanks to those crazy text threats, the lawyers are going to throw him in jail for a very long time. Mia is hit by a massive wave of relief, but also brutal guilt, whispering she never wanted this absolute chaos. Listen, nobody wants the drama, but sometimes setting a boundary requires burning the ground entirely. Dante sets his drink down and puts his heavy hands right on Mia's shoulders, telling her he knows she did not want this. But he drops some cold, hard truth. Garbage guys like Marcus do not magically wake up and decide to heal. They keep pushing until an absolute alpha stops them. Dante makes it clear. The beatdown is Marcus's own consequence, not her fault. Mia looks up at this terrifying boss who just became her personal shield, and something deep inside her fully shifts. He is so close she can literally smell the blood mixed with his expensive cologne. She whispers she does not even know how to thank him. He traces her skin and murmurs not to thank him yet, because the war is not over. You and I both know that true safety is rarely peaceful, and sometimes you have to weather a massive storm to finally find it. Dante lays out the grim reality. Marcus might be heading for a jail cell, but his bitter family and shady friends might want revenge. He tells Mia she needs to stay exactly where she is, right under his protection. When Mia asks for how long, Dante hits her with that intense eye contact and says for as long as it takes. He tells her she is free to leave, but he desperately wants her to stay until the threat is totally wiped out. Every logical brain cell Mia has is screaming that this is dangerous. Staying with a powerful boss means crossing a line you can never uncross. But honestly, she is incredibly exhausted from playing it safe and living in fear. She takes a deep breath and whispers her surrender. She is staying. The greatest leaps of faith happen when we simply stop trying to fight the terrifying current. The second she surrenders, absolute primal triumph flashes in Dante's eyes. He cups her face, tilting her chin up, and demands to know if she truly grasps what staying with him means. Mia's heart is beating out of her chest as she admits she is not entirely sure. Dante's jaw clenches. He tells her it means she is his to protect, his to care for, and he will do absolutely anything to keep her safe. Now, that kind of crazy possessive energy should have sent her running for the hills. Instead, a wild heat rushes through her veins. She softly asks what he gets out of this insane arrangement. He breathes out a single word. You. He gets her, locked down where nobody can touch her without dealing with him first. Love, in its most chaotic form, is just an iron shield we build around the people we cannot bear to lose. Dante's thumb brushes over Mia's healing lip, tracing the bruise like a map of her past trauma. She lets out this tiny gasp, and Dante's eyes instantly go dark. His voice is shaking with pure restraint as he tells her to stop him. He says if she thinks it is too soon, just say the word and he will walk away. But Mia absolutely refuses to do it. Even with all the insane chaos ripping her life apart, she has never felt safer than right now, wrapped up in his arms above the city skyline. She rises on her toes and presses her lips to his. It starts soft, but then he just crushes her against his chest, and the kiss explodes into something incredibly hungry. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is finally allow yourself to trust someone after being broken. Dante tangles his hands deep in her hair, pulling her even closer. Mia totally melts against him, giving in to the absolute rush. When they finally pull apart, they are both panting, the air between them thick with heavy tension. Dante rests his forehead against hers and mutters that this is a terrible idea. He warns her she is incredibly vulnerable, fresh out of a nightmare marriage, and he should know better than to cross the line. But Mia pulls back, locking onto his dark eyes, and hits him with the ultimate comeback. She asks if she finally gets to make her own choices about who she wants. A smirk tugs at Dante's lips. For the first time in years, Mia is not acting out of fear. She is making a choice for her own happiness. The biggest power move you can ever make in life is reclaiming the right to choose your own path. Jumping into a completely unknown situation is always terrifying, but Mia looks at him and says she is choosing him, whatever that means. Dante gets super serious and warns her that everything is going to change. He admits he is a dangerous guy with ruthless enemies, and he gets crazy possessive. She jokes, asking if he is going to lock her in a penthouse. He deadpans much more than that. Then a genuine smile breaks through his cold face. He tells her he does not share, and once he claims something, it is game over. When Mia pushes back and says she is not just a piece of property, his voice drops to a gravelly whisper. No, he agrees. She is something way more valuable. And then he kisses her. Remember this lesson. Knowing your true worth is the greatest power you can hold. Dante literally looks at her and says she is the first thing he has wanted to protect in a long time, just because he wants to. Guys, the next 3 weeks in that penthouse are wild. It is this crazy mix of mob boss business and domestic bliss. They are not even sharing a bed yet, but the tension is completely off the charts. She is cooking dinner while he is handling shady Italian phone calls. On the balcony, she is picking up on all his little habits, like how his posture changes when he is dealing with something lethal. Meanwhile, the real world keeps spinning. Mrs. Chen gives them the update that Marcus got locked in a cold cell for assault. Here is a simple lesson for you. Sometimes you need to sit in the quiet to heal, but always keep an eye on the storm outside. You ever feel stuck in the hallway between a closed door and an open one? That is exactly where Mia is sitting. Marcus is rotting in county jail, begging for a plea deal. With the divorce 60 days out, she should be thrilled, right? Instead, she is terrified, caught between her messy past and this insanely dangerous new mob reality. Her old boss Giuseppe promises her job is safe, and her co-workers are sending her chocolate. Even Marco, Dante's absolute brick wall of a hitman, starts leaving her fresh pastries and cozy blankets. But none of it matters, because Dante is living rent-free in her head 24/7. The lesson here is simple. You can surround yourself with all the comfort in the world, but your mind will always zero in on the one person who makes you feel alive. Behind closed doors, the big bad mafia don is a totally different breed. Mia is learning all his dark secrets. She watches this absolute unit of a man wake up from brutal nightmares, gasping for air and reaching for the weapon in his nightstand. Then she hears his sweet Sunday phone calls with his mom. It is wild how a guy drowning in violence can be so gentle, always asking permission before making a move. They refuse to put a label on it. Dating feels way too normal, and a relationship is way too heavy for their trauma. They just exist in this unnamed gray area. But the tension is stacking up like a dark storm waiting to break. Life teaches us a simple truth here. You cannot ignore a spark forever, because eventually the universe is going to strike a match and change everything. Picture this. Mia is brewing some tea when the penthouse doors absolutely fly open. Dante storms in early, and his face is looking more lethal than we have ever seen. Marco and Vincent are right behind him, looking like the Grim Reaper. Mia feels that icy terror hit her spine and asks what is going down. Dante crosses the room in 3 strides and grips her shoulders. He drops the bomb. Marcus made bail. His brother put up his house for the cash. He violated the order 2 hours ago, went straight to her old place, and started threatening people to find her. He does not know about the penthouse yet, but he is looking. Here is your lesson, folks. A legal piece of paper will never stop a toxic person who has absolutely nothing to lose. You have to be ready to protect your own peace. Stick with me here, because this is where the plot goes completely off the rails. Dante is pacing like a caged tiger, eyes blazing with fury. He says people talk when cash is involved, and he regrets not taking Marcus out when he had the chance. Mia begs him to stop, but Dante grabs her face. He tells her he tried playing by the rules with the courts, but the system completely failed her. Her ex is hunting her right now, and the boss is not having it. He turns to Marco with a voice made of absolute ice and gives the chilling order to drag Marcus to the warehouse quietly. The takeaway here is raw but real. When the systems meant to protect you turn a blind eye, sometimes you need someone in your corner who is absolutely willing to bend the rules to ensure your survival. Marco nods and vanishes into the elevator like a ghost. Mia lunges and grabs Dante before he can slip into the dark with them. She is pleading with him not to end a life over this, not for her sake and not for his. Dante stops, his voice dropping to zero. He says he is doing it for himself, because he cannot keep her safe while this obsessed loser is still breathing. He pulls her close, kisses her forehead, and delivers the hardest line of the entire series. He would rather be a monster who keeps her safe than a good man who watches her die. Mia looks up with tears and straight up tells him he is no monster. He is absolutely stunned. Lesson of the day. The people who truly love you will see the goodness in your soul, even when you are prepared to do the unthinkable for them. Mia looks this terrifying mob boss dead in the eye and tells him he is just a man carrying too much darkness for reasons he thinks are right. Then she drops the ultimate bombshell. She is falling in love with him, maybe even because of his dark side. The honesty hanging in the air is totally raw. Dante stares at her like she just handed him a fragile piece of glass and he has no clue how to hold it. Then he completely loses it and crashes his lips onto hers in this fierce, claiming kiss. When he pulls back, he is breathless. He tells her to lock the doors and promises to return by morning. She holds her ground and says she loves him too. Simple truth of life right here. Sometimes the most broken people give us the exact kind of fierce love we actually need to finally heal. Her words hit him right in the chest. Dante exhales and confesses he has loved her since the second he saw her bruises and took it personally. He loved her defiance, and that is exactly why he is finishing the job tonight. Then, boom, he is gone. He leaves Mia pacing the penthouse floor, her mind spinning completely out of control. The hours crawl by. She is terrified that if Dante crosses that line and ends Marcus, the darkness will ruin their relationship forever. She stays awake all night until the sun starts painting the skyline in these crazy pink and gold colors. Finally, the elevator chimes. Dante steps out into the morning light, and guys, he is completely alone. Life lesson. Waiting for the storm to pass is honestly way more agonizing than facing the storm itself. Dante looks like he just walked through a meat grinder. His expensive suit is trashed, splattered with blood, and his knuckles are completely raw. But his eyes, totally calm. He just says it is done. Mia rushes over, shaking, and asks the massive question. Did he end him? Dante catches her hands and drops the wildest plot twist. Nope. He put Marcus on a flight to Mexico with 50 grand in cash and a promise that if he ever shows his face again, it is game over. The relief hits Mia so hard her knees literally give out. She is crying, asking why he spared him. Dante's icy glare melts and he tells her he did it simply because she asked him not to. Here is the lesson. True power is not about destroying your enemies. It is about having the absolute strength to show mercy when it matters. You and I have watched this crazy journey, and here is the absolute truth. Dante whispers that he loves her way more than he hates that loser ex. He wants to build a future, not spend his life dodging cops. Mia is crying, saying she loves him so much it terrifies her. Dante tells her fear is a good thing. It means she is finally feeling something real. As the morning sun lights up the penthouse, everything shifts. Her messy old life is completely gone. The divorce is handled, and the 2-year nightmare is officially over. What replaces it is wild, scary, and totally beautiful. Real talk, the greatest lesson here is that you cannot step into an amazing new chapter until you are truly brave enough to let your old, toxic history burn completely to the ground. Picture them just standing there in the quiet aftermath of all this chaos. Mia looks up, her voice fragile against his chest, and asks what happens now. Dante, a guy whose entire resume is just breaking things, pulls her in tight. He tells her they are going to build. She gets to heal, and he gets to figure out how to be a man instead of a human weapon. He is not selling her some fake fairy tale. He is just giving his solemn vow to wake up and earn her trust every single day. When she stands on her toes to kiss him, pouring all her scars into that moment, the vibe is undeniable. Out of absolute total disaster, they created something real. The lesson is beautiful right here, guys. Sometimes the absolute darkest dirt is the exact place you need to grow the deepest, strongest roots. Fast forward 6 months, and look at Mia now. You and I both know how hard it is to shake off the shadows once you have lived in them. But she is back behind the bar at Romano's, pouring drinks for clueless guys who have zero idea she is wearing the ring of the most lethal mob boss in the city. Dante is chilling in his dark corner booth, running his empire, but his eyes are totally locked on her. Her boss Giuseppe is absolutely thrilled to have her back. Mia just smiles, rubbing that massive diamond on her left hand. Guys, we are wrapping up with the ultimate life lesson. True safety is not about locking yourself in a silent tower. True safety is having the guts to stand right in the massive noise of life, knowing the person you love has your back, no matter what happens. This is where the story gets wild, guys. Dante actually hands her his late mother's ring, his hands totally shaking. It's this insane moment of vulnerability that makes Mia break down in tears. But get this, she actually keeps her waitressing job. She's building her own life, proving she's a hardened survivor and not just some fragile glass doll he can lock away. Later, Dante catches her eye across the packed restaurant and gives her this intense, private smirk. Just look at the insane character arc here. From a broken girl hiding massive bruises to a queen, running her own life under the wing of a mob boss. It's a fantastic lesson to wrap this up on. No matter how agonizing your past chapters were, they absolutely don't get to dictate the final shape of your tomorrow. Listen up, guys, their life is still an absolute mess. Dante's reality is straight up soaked in mob danger, incredibly complicated and heavy with lethal consequences. But here is the massive plot twist. He belongs to her and she belongs to him. Not as some shiny mafia trophy won in a brutal turf war, but as an absolute equal. They are basically two broken souls who wake up and actively choose each other against every single odd. You and I spend our whole lives searching for a flawless romance without any sharp edges. But here is the real life lesson today. True love is not about finding absolute peace. It is about finding that one person whose chaotic storm perfectly matches your own and deciding to walk right through the heavy rain together. That is the true magic.